But what is it about us that maybe limits us to even the ecosystem that we're able to be in? Because it feels like so oftentimes what happens in our childhood really defines where we end up as an adult. And oftentimes it's the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you grew up in the church, you're like, I'm never going to end up in the church,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or if I didn't grow up in the church, you end up, hey, I'm more curious about something that I'm unfamiliar with. What is that?
I think we attach particular emotions to different experiences.
Okay.
And we think it's the experience, but it's actually the emotion,
Okay.
because
Okay.
even there, I remember there were times where you were like a fully like integrated worshiper, and you would measure other people's commitment to becoming a leader if they were able to worship effectively, freely, and openly.
Yeah.
And so I think
I do still agree. I just know that maybe, and it's like a self-diagnosis going like, oh, I know I'm not in a place to lead, and I haven't been in a long time. And we've had that, I haven't been, because maybe I can't worship the same way,
Yeah, so I think it has more to do with like connection,
Okay.
And, but I do think people worship differently. And I think that there are people who worship more effectively in quiet rooms, and people who worship more effectively in loud rooms, and people who worship more effectively with a lot of people, and some who worship more effectively with a very few people, or, almost alone, at times. And I don't think there's a right or wrong in that. I think it's just finding your rhythm and finding what's right and what works and what connects you to God. The methodology is not sacred. It's the outcome that's sacred.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we confuse the methodology and the outcome,
But the methodology matters. It does matter.
Yeah.
It matters.
I mean, and that's one of the reasons worship is really important. If you just want to even look at all the research on human frequencies, what happens when you're worshiping is that there's a connection to a particular frequency that opens you up and makes you more adaptive to learning new things, and I think actually really connecting to God and to His voice in your life. And I know as a speaker, when you have extraordinary worship, when you begin to speak and teach, it's a much more open room. People are just leaning in.
Because it really does break down people's internal walls.
Yeah, and maybe some of the uncomfortableness is that there are walls you don't want broken down right now.
Yeah, maybe it's just,
Yeah,
and I don't know what I've put behind. I mean, I know what I've put behind some of them.
But some of it may be that you actually just don't really enjoy that level of stimulation anymore that you did when you were 22.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And
you change. People change. They grow.
But you've never been a huge fan of worship. We don't have to talk about that. But mostly because I don't think that's how you loud music in a big room isn't how you do it.
No, I just know that people need it, and it's really important for their journey. And it's never been my primary way of connecting to God.
Right.
But fortunately, somewhere along the way, I realized that my unique experience shouldn't be the measure of how everyone else experiences God.
Yeah.
And so I just want to create ways that people can connect, which leads me to a question you'd asked me earlier about human uniqueness. And, some of the problem sometimes is that we try to find a very standardized solution for everyone, a standardized solution for everyone's problem, and a standardized solution for everyone's development. And not everyone grows the same. We all grow differently. Like, I think for me, early on, people would say things like, I need to experience it to learn. Like I need to go through it. I can't remember what the phrase is exactly, but
Okay.
like the implication was, unless I experience it, I can't learn from it.
Yeah.
And I always thought,
I have to make my own mistakes.
Yeah, I need to make my own mistakes. And,
Yeah.
and I always thought, I have a better strategy. I like pain avoidance.
Right.
So I watch how bad decisions affect other people, and I decide I'm not going to make that decision. There have been times where I touched a hot iron and I realized, don't do that. But if I see someone else touch that hot iron, I don't need to touch that hot iron to know it's going to burn me.
I think the more complicated thing is when the hot iron is a great idealistic metaphor because it only hurts you. But there are things that make you feel good and then hurt you. And that's the more complicated thing, right? If the hot iron made you feel wonderful right before it hurt you, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that I think is the human dilemma when it comes to whether it's pain and pleasure and sin and and happiness and joy, it's like so oftentimes the things that are so destructive to you are the things that make you feel elated right before.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really profound insight, because you now describe sex, alcohol, drugs, food.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like, it's all in that category.
Everything, working out, church.
Yeah.
There is no, like, addiction started in church. I have no doubt about that. That you look at hysteria, you look at the psychological studies around hysteria.
I'm going to push back. I don't think addiction started in church. I think addiction started in human
Well, then
experience.
OCD absolutely started in the Catholic Church. I was talking to my boy.
There is a lot of OCD in the Catholic Church.
I was talking to Matt Fagan on Sunday night when I stopped by, and he went to his brother goes to a Greek Orthodox church, and I'm so happy for him. I love Mike, and I love his wife Sage, wonderful people. He was like, they were getting the baby dedicated. He was like, it was like a 2.5 hour service, and he's like, they got up and went down and stood up and stood down and on their knees, and then the prayers, and he's like, me and Matt. The funny thing, we were roommates for 4 years. We were both insanely OCD, and he was like, my man, my OCD was on fire. I was losing it. Like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't go back to the Catholic upbringing that, is very similar in that traditional way.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up Roman Catholic, as well.
You did, right.
Yeah.
But you were a true Roman Catholic. You only went to church on Easter and Christmas.
But I believed. No, and I remember I prayed the same prayer over and over and over and over again. And I mean, when I was a kid, I started doing the genuflect all the time until I actually had a mark on my head, and my mom would just like, stop it, stop it, stop it. And my OCD connected to my religious beliefs, and I went out of control.
Yeah.
And so I ironically, I do think there is a connection between religion and psychosis and neurosis and all that dynamic. But it doesn't mean that it's all that. It just means that there's definitely a relationship there. But going back to...
well, you pushed back on me. You said religion isn't the core of addiction.
No, religion is an expression of human realities. It doesn't create the problems. It contains the problems. And when people go, God is the reason why humanity is like so messed up, I'm going, if there is no God, which is what they were saying, then God can't be to blame for the human dilemma. Humans created God if there's no God. And so then only humans are responsible for everything done in God's name. And so ironically, every dark, evil thing that's ever done in God's name are by people who are either delusional or don't actually believe in God. They're just using God as a very utilitarian channel to manipulate people to get their ultimate end.